Are you self-aware? Most people think they have good self-awareness, but have you ever stopped to think what that even means? If you're like most people, the answer to the first question is probably yes, I am self-aware. But the answer to the second one, that might be no. No, I've never really stopped to define what self-awareness is. I guess maybe it just means knowing myself. Well, it's a bit deeper than that. And it's actually important. It might even be vital to understand a little bit more. To some extent, you could view life as being a progression towards what humanistic social scientists and psychologists like Abraham Maslow and Carl Rogers referred to as self-actualisation. That is, being the best version of you and reaching your full potential. And this is a progression that starts with a level of self-curiosity, which, by the way, is not the same as being self-indulgent or selfish. And that self-curiosity progresses to self-awareness, and then ultimately to a more fulfilled and fulfilling life. So let's come back to my opening question. Are you self-aware? Research led by Tasha Eurich and her team, who analysed nearly 5,000 people over 10 different studies, showed that self-awareness is a powerful predictor of success. People who are truly able to see themselves clearly are much more confident, they're more creative, they make better decisions, they build stronger relationships, and ultimately they're more effective leaders. Yet only around 10 to 15% of the people who were in these studies met the criteria to be classed as truly self-aware. Eurich's work highlights two distinct types of self-awareness. The first is internal self-awareness, which is knowing your values, your passions, your strengths, your weaknesses, and the things that you stand for, and more importantly, will not stand for, what you won't tolerate. The second is external self-awareness, which is understanding how other people see you. Now, these two don't necessarily go together. You might be clear about yourself, but blind to others' perceptions. Or you might be very tuned into how others see you, but disconnected from what really matters to you. And this distinction echoes Carl Rogers' concept of internal and external loci of evaluation. Rogers argued that people with an internal locus measure their worth and direction against their own values, whereas those with an external locus are overly reliant on others' opinions and approval. Rogers' work is actually really important here because it highlights the fact that most commonly of all, people tend to judge themselves not by clear-cut external loci of evaluation, but rather by the stories that they tell themselves about what other people think of them. And those stories that we tell ourselves are often distorted or inaccurate. So, going back to Eurich's work for a second, she describes those with high or low internal and external self-awareness on a 2x2 grid. You've got seekers who are low on both types of self-awareness, and they often feel stuck or frustrated. Then you've got pleasers who are high external but low internal self-awareness, and they risk making choices that satisfy others but not themselves. Then you've got introspectors who are high internal self-awareness but low external, and they know who they are but they miss their blind spots. And then you have the aware, who are high on both, who balance self-clarity with feedback from others. And it's here that the real benefits of self-awareness can be realized. Now, there are two common traps. First, experience and power don't always help. In fact, they can make us less self-aware. They can actually make you overconfident, insulated from feedback, or reluctant to listen. The most effective leaders actively counter this by seeking honest input from what Eurich calls loving critics, people who care enough to tell them the truth. Second, introspection. It's not always the answer to self-awareness. Many of us who want to improve ourselves will ask why questions. Why do I feel this way? Why did I react like that? And it's great to reflect, of course, but as any coach will tell you, and research backs it up, why questions often lead us into rumination, defensiveness, or actually false conclusions, because we're remarkably good at creating credible sounding explanations and self-justifications to answer a why question. The better approach is to ask what questions. What questions can be like, what situations can trigger this? What can I do differently next time? What steps will help me to improve? What questions are more easily framed in a way that is future focused and actionable? So the takeaway is this: Leaders who balance internal clarity with external feedback, who stay humble despite experience and power, and who focus on asking themselves reflective questions framed with a what instead of a why, are far more likely to see themselves clearly, and in doing so, unlock the confidence, the relationships, and the effectiveness that true self-awareness brings. Hope that's helpful.